The desperate call. The azure skies of Taragna Prime had never known war. For centuries, the Taragni people had built their civilization across the lush valleys and crystal seas of their homeworld, developing a society that valued knowledge, art, and peaceful expansion. Their elegant spires reached toward the stars, not as weapons or fortresses, but as beacons of curiosity and wonder. The Taragni, with their iridescent skin and four gentle eyes that could perceive spectrums beyond imagination, had mastered sustainable fusion, gravity manipulation, and faster-than-light communication. But they had never mastered war. When the Voidborn came, they came without warning. The first signs were subtle. Communications disruptions in the outer colonies, strange readings from deep space observation posts, unexplained silence from research stations. The Taragni Council of Elders dismissed these as technical malfunctions. After all, conflict on such a scale was simply not part of their understanding of the universe. Then the skies darkened. They were called Voidborn because they seemed to emerge from the empty darkness between stars, their massive warships appearing suddenly in high orbit over Taragna Prime. Angular and black, the vessels resembled jagged obsidian shards, their surfaces absorbing light rather than reflecting it. They hung ominously against the blue backdrop of the Taragni homeworld, defying the natural order with their very presence. Elder Shireen stood at the central observatory, her four eyes wide with disbelief as she watched the security feeds. The primary landing zone had already been established by the invaders, a sprawling field on the northern continent, where once the Grand Harvest Festival had been celebrated just a season prior. "How many?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Initial estimates suggest 23 capital ships and over 100 smaller vessels," replied Technician Kelris, his fingers trembling as they danced across the holographic interface. "They're deploying ground forces now." The Voidborn foot soldiers were nightmares made flesh. Towering nearly 3 meters tall, their bodies were encased in exoskeletons of the same light-absorbing material as their ships. Where faces should have been, they bore only featureless helmets with a single crimson sensor strip. They moved with horrifying efficiency, their movements precise and coordinated in ways that suggested a hive mind or neural network controlling their actions. The Taragni Peacekeeping Force, an organization that had primarily served as disaster relief and civil protection, found themselves outmatched in every conceivable way. Their energy pistols, designed to stun unruly citizens or hostile wildlife, simply dissipated against the Voidborn armor. The few military-grade weapons they possessed, maintained mostly for ceremonial purposes, barely slowed the invaders' advance. Within days, the gleaming capital city of Luminar fell. The crystal and silver spires that had stood for 1,000 years crumbled under pinpoint orbital strikes. The great libraries, containing the collective knowledge of the Taragni civilization, burned. The hospitals, filled with the wounded and dying, were methodically dismantled, their occupants herded into processing centers established by the Voidborn. Elder Shireen, now operating from an underground facility beneath the southern mountains, gathered what remained of the council. "What do they want?" asked Elder Taurus, his once vibrant skin now pale and dull with stress and fear. "They've made no demands, broadcast no ultimatums. They simply take resources," perhaps suggested another. "Our moon has significant rare element deposits. But why not just mine uninhabited systems?" countered a third. "Why waste resources on a conquest?" Shireen silenced them with a raised hand. "Their motivations are irrelevant now. What matters is survival, not just of individuals, but of our species and everything we've built." She turned to the communications array, the most powerful transmission system the Taragni had ever constructed. Originally designed to maintain contact with their farthest exploratory vessels, it now represented their last hope. "We are not the only intelligent life in this galaxy," she said firmly. "There are others, species we've traded with, worlds we've sent cultural exchanges to. Someone must have the capacity to help us. You would invite more aliens to our world." Taurus asked incredulously, "After what these ones have done?" "We have no choice," Shireen replied, her voice heavy with the weight of her decision. "Either we find allies, or we face extinction." The message was simple, broadcast on all frequencies and in all known communication protocols. "This is Elder Shireen of the Tyranny Council. Our world faces annihilation by an unknown hostile force. We have no military capacity to resist. If anyone receives this message, we beg for assistance. We offer everything we have in exchange for survival. Please help us." The transmission shot outward at superluminal speeds, carrying the desperate plea of a dying civilization across the stars. Day after day, the Tyranny waited in their hidden bunker, monitoring communications and watching as their world was systematically dismantled around them. Cities fell. Continents were scared by precision mining operations. The oceans were drained of specific rare compounds. And still, no answer came. "It's been 14 cycles," Taurus said finally, his voice hollow. "No one is coming." Just as he spoke, the communications array pinged. A response. The entire bunker fell silent as Shireen activated the receiver. The message was short, text only, and in a language none of their systems recognized. The translation matrix worked for several moments before rendering it into Tyranny. "Distress signal received. Coordinates confirmed. Hold position. Humans coming." The council stared at each other in confusion. "Humans." Technician Kelris whispered, "I've never heard of such a species." "Check the archives," Shireen ordered. "Any reference, any old trading manifests, exploratory mission reports, anything." The search took only moments. Nothing. No record of any species calling themselves humans existed in the extensive Tyranny databases. Could it be a mistranslation? Someone suggested. Or perhaps a new species we haven't encountered before, added another. One from beyond our explored regions. Shireen felt a flicker of hope, quickly tempered by caution. Whatever they are, they're our only chance. But we know nothing about them, their capabilities, their numbers, their motivations. Could they be worse than the Voidborn? Taurus asked grimly. No one had an answer to that. 3 days later, the sensors in the bunker detected new objects entering the system. Unlike the Voidborn ships, which had simply appeared without warning, these vessels decelerated from what appeared to be conventional FTL travel. There were only 7 of them, minuscule compared to the Voidborn fleet, but they were enormous, each measuring at least 5 kilometers in length. Their design was unlike anything the Tyranny had ever seen. Where the Voidborn ships were angular and black, these new vessels were smooth and gray, with occasional blue lights pulsing along their hulls. They resembled nothing so much as massive predators, sleek and purpose-built, with forward sections that reminded Shireen of the skull of a hunting beast. "Are they warships?" Kelris asked in awe. "I believe they are," Shireen replied, watching as the 7 massive ships arranged themselves in a precise formation just beyond the orbit of Tyragna's outermost moon. The Voidborn fleet reacted immediately, dozens of their obsidian vessels moving to intercept the newcomers. The council watched in tense silence, wondering if they were about to witness the beginning of their salvation or simply a change in overlords. What happened next would be seared into the collective memory of the Tyranny forever. Without warning or apparent provocation, one of the human ships, not even the largest of the 7, fired a single bright pulse of energy. The beam, so intensely white that the observatory's sensors automatically dimmed to protect the watcher's eyes, struck one of the Voidborn capital ships. There was no explosion, no dramatic fireball. The Voidborn vessel simply ceased to be, disintegrating into its component atoms in an instant. The council chamber erupted in gasps and cries of shock. The Voidborn fleet responded with a coordinated attack, dozens of energy weapons firing simultaneously at the human ships. Brilliant flashes of destructive power washed over the newcomers and dissipated harmlessly against what must have been energy shields of inconceivable strength. The human response was methodical and terrifying. One by one, their ships fired those same white energy beams, and one by one, the void-born vessels were erased from existence. There was no battle, no struggle, no contest of equals. It was annihilation, pure and simple. Within 20 minutes, the once mighty void-born fleet was reduced to scattered debris and fleeing remnants. The skies above Tarragna Prime, which had been darkened by the invaders for weeks, began to clear. "By the first light," whispered Elder Taurus, his voice trembling, "what have we called upon ourselves?" Before anyone could respond, the communications array activated again. This time, it wasn't text, but a visual transmission. The image that formed in the holographic projector showed what was presumably a human. The being looked unsettlingly similar to a Tarragni in basic body plan. Bilateral symmetry, upright posture, head with sensory organs, but the differences were striking. The human had only 2 eyes, set in a flat face with a protruding nasal structure and a mouth filled with what appeared to be hard white structures. The skin was pale and seemed remarkably fragile compared to Tarragni iridescent exodermis. The human wore what was clearly a military uniform of some kind, dark blue with gold insignia that the translation matrix couldn't interpret. "I am Admiral Helena Chen of the United Earth Fleet," the human said, its voice translated to Tarragni in real time. "We received your distress call and have neutralized the immediate threat. The remaining enemy forces are being eliminated on the surface. We will make planetfall at these coordinates in 6 of your hours. Prepare to receive us." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the Tarragni Council in stunned silence. "They destroyed the void-born fleet as if it were nothing," Kelrus finally said, his voice filled with awe and terror in equal measure. "And now they're coming here," added Taurus grimly. Shireen stared at the empty space where the human's image had been. "We asked the galaxy for help," she said quietly, "and it seems we have awakened something far more powerful than we could have imagined." On the monitors around them, the remaining human ships began to deploy smaller vessels toward the planet's surface. The void-born ground forces, seemingly cut off from whatever command structure had directed them, began to break formation and scatter. Some fought on, but most appeared to be retreating or simply shutting down. The Tarragni had called for saviors. But as Shireen watched the methodical, overwhelming power of these humans unfold before her, she wondered if they had instead summoned something far more dangerous, an unmatched power that the galaxy itself might have good reason to fear. Awakening the sleeping giant. The descent of the human shuttle was a sight that would forever be etched in the memories of all Tarragni who witnessed it. Unlike the brutal, scorching landings of the void-born vessels, this craft descended with remarkable precision, its engines emitting a soft blue glow that left the surrounding vegetation untouched. It settled gently in the clearing outside the hidden bunker entrance, the displaced air barely stirring the nearby foliage. Elder Shireen led a small delegation to meet these mysterious saviors, her hearts pounding with both hope and dread. The shuttle's hatch opened with a soft hiss, revealing a ramp that extended smoothly to the ground. 4 humans emerged, 3 in armored suits that seemed impossibly lightweight, yet radiated an unmistakable sense of protection, and 1 in the same dark blue uniform they had seen in the transmission. Admiral Helena Chen. The leading human introduced herself with a slight inclination of her head. Her voice was translated through a small device at her collar. United Earth Fleet. Shireen bowed deeply in the traditional Tarragni greeting. Elder Shireen of the Council. We thank you for answering our call." The Admiral's face remained impassive, but her eyes, sharp and assessing, took in everything. "Your situation was compelling. The Scourge has been a problem in several sectors." "The Scourge?" Shireen asked. "Is that what you call the Voidborn?" "That's our designation for them," Chen replied. "They're a parasitic collective that moves from system to system, stripping planets of specific resources and moving on. We've been tracking their expansion for some time." Shireen felt a chill. "You knew of them before our call?" "We knew," the Admiral confirmed without elaboration. She gestured to the bunker entrance. "Perhaps we should continue this discussion inside. My science team will want to assess your situation and coordinate our response." As they walked, Shireen observed these humans with fascination and unease. They moved with an economy of motion that spoke of both efficiency and hidden strength. Their facial expressions were subtle but readable, not unlike the Taragni's own. But there was something else about them, something that set them apart from any species the Taragni had encountered before, an invisible aura of contained power. Inside the bunker, the council gathered to meet the humans. Admiral Chen introduced her companions: Commander Ashita, her tactical officer; Dr. Okafor, the science specialist; and Lieutenant Santos, security chief. The humans declined offers of nutrition or rest, focusing immediately on the task at hand. "The Scourge vessels in orbit have been neutralized," Chen explained, activating a holographic display from a device on her wrist. "Our ground forces are currently engaging the remaining enemy troops on your northern and eastern continents. Resistance is minimal." They appeared disorganized without their command structure. The display showed real-time footage of human soldiers engaging Voidborn troops. The difference in combat effectiveness was staggering. Where the Taragni peacekeepers had been helpless against the invaders, the humans moved with lethal precision, their weapons cutting through Voidborn armor with ease. Some human soldiers even appeared to engage in hand-to-hand combat with the taller, seemingly stronger Voidborn, and win. "How?" Elder Taurus couldn't help but ask. "How can your people defeat them so easily when our weapons had no effect?" Dr. Okafor, a woman with deep brown skin and gentle eyes that contrasted sharply with her clinical tone, answered. "The Scourge rely on adaptive shielding that analyzes incoming energy signatures and modulates to resist them. Your weapons are, forgive me, but they're predictable. Single-spectrum energy discharge, consistent power levels, easy for their shields to adapt to." She gestured to the footage, where a human soldier fired a weapon that seemed to shift colors between shots. "Our phase-variant weapons continuously modulate, making it impossible for their shields to establish an effective countermeasure." As for physical combat, added Lieutenant Santos with what might have been a hint of pride, human soldiers undergo extensive genetic and cybernetic enhancement. "We're stronger, faster, and more durable than baseline." The casual way he mentioned such modifications sent a ripple of unease through the gathered Taragni. The idea of deliberately altering one's genetic makeup or integrating mechanical components was deeply troubling to their cultural sensibilities. "But why help us?" asked another council member. "You clearly knew about these Scourge before. Why not intervene earlier? Why wait until we called?" Admiral Chen's expression hardened slightly. "Humanity operates under specific rules of engagement. We do not interfere with the development of other civilizations unless directly requested to do so, or unless the Scourge threatens our interests." "And which was it in our case?" Shireen asked quietly. The Admiral met her gaze directly. "Both. Your call came just as we were preparing to engage the Scourge in this sector anyway. They've been moving steadily toward human space for the past 3 standard years. We decided it was time to send a message." The implications hung heavy in the air. The humans hadn't come primarily to save the Taragni. They had come to eliminate a threat to their own territories, and used the distress call as convenient justification. Commander Ashita, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. "We should discuss what happens next," he said, his voice calm and measured. "The immediate threat has been neutralized, but your world has suffered significant damage." Dr. Okafor activated a different holographic display, showing a planetary scan of Taragna Prime. Large sections were highlighted in red, indicating devastation. The Scourge's resource extraction was aggressive but selective. They were primarily harvesting specific rare earth elements and water. The ecological damage is severe, but not irreversible. "We can help with the restoration efforts," Admiral Chen added. "That is, if you're interested in establishing formal relations with the United Earth Alliance." The offer seemed generous on its face, but Shireen perceived the underlying reality. This was not truly an offer but a polite formality. The humans were clearly a galactic power of immense technological and military superiority. Refusing their help would be both foolish and potentially dangerous. Of course, Shireen replied carefully. The Taragni people would be honored by such an alliance. The following days revealed the true extent of human capabilities and the true nature of the void-born threat. Human scientists and engineers worked alongside Taragni specialists to begin healing the wounded planet. Their technology was centuries beyond anything the Taragni had developed, operating on principles that sometimes seemed more like magic than science. One human engineer, noticing a Taragni technician's amazement at a soil reclamation device, laughed softly. "You folks really did develop in a completely different direction than us, didn't you?" "What do you mean?" the technician asked. "Your civilization focused on harmony, sustainability, communication," the engineer explained. "Beautiful stuff, really. But humans, well, our history is mostly about finding better ways to kill each other. Then, when we weren't doing that, we were racing to see who could build the biggest things or go the farthest or fastest." She gestured to the device. "This technology, it was originally designed to terraform hostile planets for colonization. Everything we've brought here was developed either for war or for conquering new frontiers. We just repurposed it." This pattern became increasingly clear as the restoration work continued. Human medical technology, capable of healing injuries the Taragni would have considered fatal, had its origins in battlefield medicine. Their agricultural techniques, which could make barren soil fertile in days, were developed to support military outposts on hostile worlds. Even their communication systems, far more advanced than Taragni equivalents, had been designed for secure battlefield coordination. A week after the humans' arrival, a disturbing discovery was made. A joint team of human and Taragni researchers, investigating a void-born command center in the northern hemisphere, uncovered data crystals containing the invaders' records. Dr. Okafor's team managed to decrypt and translate them, revealing the true purpose behind the void-born's systematic harvesting. "They're building something," Dr. Okafor explained to the gathered council and human officers. "These resources they're collecting, they're components for a megastructure of some kind. Our analysis suggests it's some form of directed energy array." "A weapon?" Commander Ishida asked sharply. "On an unprecedented scale," Dr. Okafor confirmed. "If our calculations are correct, it would be capable of manipulating the energy output of a star, potentially causing premature nova events." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. A weapon that could cause stars to explode would be capable of wiping out entire systems with a single strike. "The Scourge aren't just parasites," Admiral Chen said finally. "They're exterminators preparing for a larger conflict." "Against whom?" Elder Shireen asked, dreading the answer. "Unknown," Dr. Okafor admitted. "But the data suggests they've been harvesting resources from uninhabited systems for centuries. The fact that they've begun targeting inhabited worlds like yours indicates that they're accelerating their timeline." "Why not just use uninhabited planets?" Technician Kelris asked. "It would be more efficient than dealing with resistance." Lieutenant Santos gave what might have been a grim smile. "Inhabited worlds have something uninhabited ones don't: concentrated resources that intelligent life has already gathered and refined. Your cities, your infrastructure, your technology, it's all pre-processed material for them." The revelation cast the Voidborn, the Scourge, in an even more terrifying light. They weren't just conquerors or parasites. They were cosmic harvesters using intelligent life as unwitting resource collectors. Admiral Chen's next words changed everything. "This confirms our intelligence. We need to find their construction site and neutralize it before it's operational. Based on these coordinates, we believe it's located in what you call the Veiled Nebula." Elder Shireen gasped. "But that's less than 30 light-years from here. Our deep space probes detected unusual energy signatures from that region, but we assumed they were natural phenomena. "There's nothing natural about what they're building," Commander Ishida said grimly. "And based on these schematics, they're much closer to completion than we estimated." "What do you intend to do?" Shireen asked. Admiral Chen's expression was resolute. "We're going to destroy it and ensure the Scourge can never threaten this sector again. But we'll need your help." "Our help?" Elder Taurus asked incredulously. "What could we possibly offer that would be of use to you?" "Information," the Admiral replied. "Your astronomical data on the Veiled Nebula is more comprehensive than ours. And more importantly, your civilization has had indirect contact with several species that might be allied with or controlled by the Scourge. We need everything you know." The partnership that formed over the next few days was unlike anything in Teragni history. For the first time, they found themselves actively participating in military planning, not as leaders, but as valuable consultants providing context and information that the humans lacked. It was both terrifying and strangely exhilarating. 3 weeks after their arrival, the human fleet prepared to depart for the Veiled Nebula. In that time, they had not only repelled the invasion, but had begun the healing of Teragna Prime, established a permanent human diplomatic and scientific outpost, and integrated Teragni astronomical data into their tactical systems. "We'll leave 2 ships in orbit," Admiral Chen informed the Council during their final meeting. "The rest of us will proceed to the target location. If our mission is successful, the Scourge threat in this sector will be eliminated. And if not?" Shireen asked quietly. The Admiral's expression was grave. "Then we've bought you time to prepare. The outpost team will assist you in developing more effective defenses and evacuation protocols if necessary." As the main human fleet prepared to depart, Elder Shireen found herself standing beside Admiral Chen at the shuttle landing site, watching as the last of the equipment was loaded. "I still don't fully understand," Shireen admitted. "You came when we called, destroyed our enemies, helped heal our world, and now you're risking your lives to eliminate a threat we didn't even know existed. Why?" Chen was silent for a long moment before answering. "Humanity's history is complicated. For most of our existence, we fought each other. Tribe against tribe, nation against nation, ideology against ideology. We nearly destroyed ourselves more than once. When we finally reached the stars, we carried those same destructive tendencies with us." She gazed up at the sky, where the massive human warships waited in orbit. "But we also learned something important along the way. Sometimes, the only thing that unites us is a common enemy. And sometimes, the best way to prevent war is to be so overwhelmingly powerful that no one dares to start one." "Deterrence through strength," Shireen murmured. "Exactly. The galaxy is vast and often hostile. We've encountered species far older and in some ways more advanced than ourselves, but none of them can match our capacity or will for warfare. It's not something we're proud of, but it's what we are." Chen turned to face the Elder directly. "We help species like yours because we remember what it was like to be vulnerable, and because every civilization we save becomes another buffer between the threats out there and our own worlds. It's compassion and strategy in equal measure." The honesty was startling, but also strangely reassuring. The humans weren't gods or saviors. They were simply a species that had channeled their inherent aggression into protection rather than conquest. As Admiral Chen boarded her shuttle, she offered a final thought. "Your people called out in desperation, Elder Shireen. You awakened something powerful, yes, but also something that understands the value of building rather than merely destroying. Remember that." The human fleet departed the next day, their massive ships accelerating to FTL speeds with a flash of controlled energy that briefly outshone Teragna's sun. The Teragni watched them go with mixed emotions, gratitude, awe, and a lingering unease about the greater galaxy they had suddenly found themselves a part of. 2 months later, the sensors at the new Joint Observation Post detected an enormous energy spike from the direction of the Veiled Nebula, followed by a gravitational wave that gently washed over the Teragni system. The human officers stationed on the planet confirmed what the Taragni scientists suspected. The Scourge megastructure had been destroyed. In the years that followed, the Taragni civilization rebuilt and expanded, now under the protective umbrella of humanity's military might. Other species in nearby systems, hearing of the humans' intervention, sent their own diplomatic missions to Earth. A new alliance began to form, one built on mutual benefit and protection. The galaxy had indeed faced an unstoppable power when the Taragni called for help. But what they had awakened was not the mindless destroyer they had feared, but rather a sleeping giant with the capacity for both terrible violence and remarkable kindness. Humanity, for all its contradictions, had become the shield behind which younger civilizations could flourish. And somewhere in the vast darkness between the stars, the remaining scourge flowed from the name they now feared above all others: human.